Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Hello, apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is Dimp Digital's flagship video game podcast where we take you through the ups and the downs of the world of video games. We are here on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, absolutely free. However, if you want to support this grassroots independent endeavour and bag yourself some early access in most cases, head over to patreon.com/dimpdigital and join the community. Hashtag hand in pocket. Just realised there, I normally do the Twitch plug as well, because you can do the Twitch Prime or subscribe there, but you don't get any early access for that, because I don't know there's a way to integrate that. It's impossible. So it is Patreon if you want that early access in most cases. And again, you'll never catch me saying you always will get that, because who knows what might happen. Anyway, joined by the resident referee, and now officially a one-time Fantasy Gaming League Grand Prix winner, it's Logan. How's it going?
I feel disappointed not to have the Nearly Man tag anymore.
Flushed it.
I think it was a good tag, and it was creating a bit of Dimp lore, I think. It's now in the bins, but still feels weird. I mean, we were texting obviously the other day about setting up next year's FGL, and I was just literally like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was getting all sorts of confused because it's not a position I've ever had to concern myself with before.
No, a lot of it is out of your hands because, as I said to you, 6 of the 10 games you will have no direct control over. You're relying on those whoever you pick to put forward what they put forward.
You know, I guess you do have control because you know Hall's going to predominantly focus on Nintendo, and you know Adcock's predominantly an indie guy and like stuff like that. So you kind of know what you're getting with these people, but then there is the Adkins of the world that go around chucking Sonic out there, and you go, right, what we doing?
Yeah, it's not an easy task, but we will be getting all that organised, ready for next year. Don't you worry. This is the last sort of what I'd say proper or normal episode of the year, so we're going to be off after this episode. There's no podcast next week, depending on when you listen to it, if it's in early access or if it's on the Monday the 19th. You won't get anything on the 26th, and then also on the free feed you won't get anything on the 2nd of January, but we should have something for you the following week. So if you're on free feeds, look out for the 9th. That's when we'll be back. And then obviously if you're in the early access pool, normally Saturday's the day, 7th is when we'll kind of be back then. It'll probably be, unless something happens in the first week, which it might do, looking to do like a little preview of the year. Logan may well be on holiday, so it might be an Adkins sort of return for him, and also just to rub some salt in the wound that he got so close to getting the Grand Prix and couldn't make it happen. So that's the sort of housekeeping there. The quiz has been done, so exposing the business there, but we've done the quiz, it's been recorded, and that'll be going up as a bonus episode at some point in the next week or so. I haven't ironed out details of when that's going to happen. But just check your feeds. If you just subscribe, I don't know who these fleeting people are that rock up for one episode and go, oh, maybe I'll check in next week. Just subscribe to it, and then it'll tell you. So there's a new episode there. Just go and listen to it, or put it on mute, or whatever you guys do. I don't know, but that's the kind of lay of the land. This is the year in review episode. It's now become a tradition. Yep. Actually, last year I remember it was actually one of the first times I cycled you in. That pisshead just went AWOL, and I was like, Logan, look, I know it's short notice, but I just want to do a year-in episode, come along for the ride, and that's sort of what sparked a more of a hands-on role for you. Despite that, I'm going to start with probably our second favourite thing in the world. It's the European sales chart. Chrissy Dring's been busy. He's been at it again over at gamesindustry.biz. I'm going to make this quick so we can get it out of the way. But I thought, well, I could wait and, we could talk about November's stats next year. I'm like, well, that's getting silly. We can spend a couple of minutes here just to do a lay of the land and see how it's shaped out. So the headline is that God of War Ragnarok was number 1 in November for the European sales chart. Shock. Well, listen to this, though. Although God of War Ragnarok was number one, the reality would have been different if Nintendo shared digital sales data and if you combine the sales of both Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The two Pokemon titles together sold very slightly less than God of War Ragnarok, and so, with digital included, Pokemon would have almost certainly been the best-selling product last month. So Nintendo tucked themselves up twice there. Once by doing this stupid thing where they have two versions of the same game, essentially, being released. So you get two separate SKUs, it doesn't combine as one, and then also they don't share the digital stuff. So some say Kratos lucky to be sitting on that perch and going, the god of Europe.
That does surprise me. I mean, I know Pokemon's a huge game, but
10 million 3 days.
I know.
This is what I mean.
It's just bizarre. That whole community is just a bit bizarre. Backwards, some would say. But...
well, that's why it's important to have this once a month, just to ground everyone in reality of actually what's going on out there. Because like you said, you'd never really expect that, given the toss that we talk about. It doesn't really get a look in. So to kind of bring some reality to that, you're like, Christ, that is... And I expect that'll be there a couple of months, longer than what God of War is.
You said that's European as well, didn't you?
That is European, yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Honestly, it just baffles me, but... well, anyway,
well, look, we'll move on. We'll do the top 10. God of War Ragnarok's top. FIFA 23 second. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is third. Pokemon Violet. Pokemon Scarlet are fourth and fifth. Sonic Frontiers in sixth. Didn't get gobbled up by Kratos there. Grand Theft Auto 5 at 7. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 8. Who hasn't got that video game?
These baffle me. Honestly, every time I'm like, where is GTA 5 coming in? Like, to your point, who ain't bought that yet?
Who ain't got it? Red Dead Redemption 2 at 9. That ain't new.
Honestly.
And then 10, Football Manager 2023.
Oh, there it is.
Game Pass didn't ruin its sales. Managed to get in the top 10 of Europe. But that's why it's important to do Europe for us as well, because I'm making the assumption in North America, which is what you're seeing most of the media outlets, it ain't got a chance, Football Manager, because they ain't playing it. Like it's a very much mostly a European kind of based sport, and that game, I would assume, its best markets are Europe, you know, in this territory that we live in. So again, people scratch their heads at why we do these things. There's logic baked in there. A little interesting tidbit for Ragnarok: 69% of the sales were for the PS5 version. So almost 2/3, which I thought was interesting, because we talk about, it's got to be on PS4 because of that install base. And it's like, but actually, the people going out buying the games day one is slanted towards people who are early adopters of the hardware in some cases. And I think that paints a little bit of a picture there. I'm not saying they should cut off 30% of their sales or 31% of their sales, because that's a lot of money. But I think it shows that we are moving in that direction. So hopefully we get some PS5, Xbox Series X only games in the near future. That should give some confidence that it's okay to start leaving stuff behind. I feel like inventory's not as, hard to get hold of as it was before. I've seen the PS5 lurking on the UK lots more in comparison to earlier this year. So that stranglehold is hopefully easing. But yeah,
hopefully, because you do feel like it's holding you back, and
whether that's based in reality or not, I agree. It
feels that way. It's kind of like at some point you just have to cut it loose, don't you?
When you're shimmying through caves every few minutes, and that's made for loading, and look, the developers have come out and said, actually, we do that sometimes so that the player knows where they're going. Well, okay.
I know where I'm going.
I know where I'm going. There's a fucking compass telling me, or it's trying to tell me. I don't think it's very good, but at least it's giving me half a chance.
And I don't know whether it's true or not, but I feel like God of War Ragnarok does it more than the original. I feel like it does.
I felt that as well.
Yeah. And it becomes a little bit. It's only like 3, 4, 5 seconds at most, right? But it does just sort of make you go.
Sometimes,
why can't I just walk in here?
Sometimes I've noticed on the first run through on a story mission, it's clearly there for a narrative purpose. Gives them 5 seconds to do a little bit of exposition. But the stuff where you're in the boat and he like fucking lays down in it like it's a fucking toboggan goes on.
Yeah.
And then what annoys me about that animation is he sort of lines it up and then gives it the most powder puff little push with the oar, and it starts off slowly and speeds up as it goes through, like it's got some sort of current sucking it through. Anyways, we talked about it last week. Me and Akins gave it a platinum, and now we're taking a big old crap on it. In any case, I thought that was interesting that, you know, one of the big titles of the year, particularly from a first party perspective and only on one platform, 70% of those sales are coming for the newer version. So hopefully that gives them some confidence to leave it behind, for lack of a better term. Year in review. People say, what's that? Well, basically all we do is talk about the games and the platform holes. The big three, as we kind of label them: Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, which have the Switch, the Xbox Series X, and the PlayStation 5. PC, I don't think it's a place to really... It seems really agnostic, PC, in that it gets nearly everything, and, you know, we had new GPUs out and whatnot, but it's very rarely are there games made specifically for that platform. There's no... It's rare that there's a game that's developed or something that's pulling people over there just to go on that platform, unless you want
World of Warcraft.
Well, yeah, maybe, but that's how many years old is that?
They're crying. They're going, oh.
Salmon is playing that a lot, so fair. That is fair cop, to be fair. They have had a few things, but in the interest of time,
In the real, well, they ain't though, have they? But in consequential,
well,
I think is the term. Like anything consequential or noteworthy. Otherwise, you just find yourself in the bins playing Tut.
They're not playing the same game, are they? There's no, because it's an agnostic platform in that you can buy an AMD CPU, a fucking Nvidia GPU, and then whatever. You're not. There's no attraction to a certain platform. There's this little small like Cold War with, you know, Steam versus. Well, it is a little, because it's not like Xbox and Sony going at it, but it's you've got Epic Game Store sort of lurking, trying to cut in on Steam stuff. That's kind of going on, but for all intents and purposes, it's still, in most cases, a really good place to play your third party stuff. And now, obviously, we get all the Xbox stuff on there anyway, and the PS5 stuff seems to come a little bit later, so they'll be excluded. Although I'm sure they're very happy with their year. Maybe I need to make more of an effort of getting someone like Salmon on just occasionally to see what's going on in the PC world, because they sort of get left out.
It's its own little bubble.
Yeah, it is. It is a bubble. Bloody expensive one, but it's a bloody good bubble if you can afford to be inside of it. My proposal here is the start of Nintendo.
All right.
For the simple reason of that, I don't think we spent a great deal of time on Nintendo platforms, us two personally, but I still think the story that comes out the back of this is it's another good year if you're into those games. And we said this last year, almost verbatim. It's almost exactly the same kind of situation. There are a slew of games that came to that platform only in most cases, and that Nintendo published or, you know, helped get onto the Switch. And when you kind of reel off the list, yes, you might say that I've got no interest in half of those. You can't argue with the sales data for one. We see it every time we do it. They're always there, these games. And to be frank, I don't think people who like those games give a toss either. It doesn't mean that it's a bad year. So, you know, there is a way of doing it. We could take all the Open Critic scores and average them out, but it's not, you know, it's not about that. So anyway, we had Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is the main sort of 2022 game that I played and got through, which was interesting. Triangle Strategy, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo Switch Sports, Mario Strikers Battle League, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, Live Alive, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Splatoon 3, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, Bayonetta 3, and then we ended with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That is, what, a dozen or so games? That's pretty good. Yeah. If you're into that stuff, you're laughing there. A game a month almost, if you average it out.
Yeah, no, it is. As you were sort of leading up to the intro, I was thinking it is another ridiculous year, really, and next year is going to be another ridiculous one as well. So, you know, I think that Switch gets a lot of stick, but when you look at how successful it's been in terms of sales and everything compared to the Wii and it is, you know, they've really knocked it out of the park in a lot of ways. I still wish they'd do something a little bit more. I don't know what I mean by that, but I don't know. Like they the handheld thing doesn't ever really pull me in because it's just an irritation. I'd rather play it in sort of docked mode.
Yeah.
I wish they'd release a console with a bit more grunt. I don't know why I want that, but I do.
I would request that as well, just because I feel like some of their games would just be better off for it. Even if it's the same games that are coming out, they would. Again, I'll repeat myself on this subject nearly every time. Objectively, they're going to look and run better. Therefore, it's going to be a better experience for the players. And like, what's that? What are we in? 5 years? How old's that fucking shit? 2017. What's that? 5 years or so?
Yeah.
Be 6 years old, Nick, which isn't a great deal of time, but it was already a bit behind
It
the
wasn't
times.
cutting edge at the time.
No, of course not.
Really?
No, but it is a handheld. But then we had Salmon on earlier in the year talking about the Steam Deck and how that's a really powerful handheld that can play almost anything this year that's come out at a good frame rate. The Switch is just not capable. So I'm hoping they do. There will obviously be another hardware version. What it is, we don't know. But they don't seem to play in the same sandpit either, really, as the other two. And it's interesting, actually. I'm not going to talk about this, in detail. The FTC, obviously, as we've spoken about, and everyone knows, looking to sue Microsoft and start that process. In their complaint letter, obviously they're trying to set out a standard where they feel like this, it could be harmful. This Activision Blizzard's, they set the market as high performance consoles, and they exclude Nintendo, saying basically the player base play different types of games. They don't play mature games. They don't play this game, that game, and that actually those people are drawn to a completely different market, and therefore, in our argument, we're going to exclude them from this discussion. We want to, because actually, if you show that Nintendo can compete without having Call of Duty, it kind of undoes a lot of what they're asking about.
Yeah,
so,
it does. Yeah.
But that was interesting to see, because I kind of agree with that in some sense. Is that there's few people that have everything, but there's a lot of people that have Switches, and to be honest, don't need anything else, and because they're drawn to Kirby Star Allies, not Kirby Star Allies, whatever it's called, bloody Kirby. The Forgotten Lands, or they want to play Xenoblade Chronicles 3, nominated for a Game of the Year Award. Like, tons over there. It's just very different.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and 95% of it or more doesn't particularly appeal to me, but I can understand why people are drawn to it. It makes perfect sense. But yeah, they do operate in a completely different bubble. But I still just wish, I don't know, I feel like I'd be more drawn to it if there was. I don't know, if it just had a bit more. I kind of feel like I know I'm stepping down a grade if I play anything on that. Not that it even matters. I just think subconsciously I'm like, well, I've got 600 quid's, not 600, like 1,200 quid's worth of console up here. Why would I be lowering myself to scrapping around on that?
Got Pokemon games.
I know, but we've been through that. It's old ground. But yeah, back to what we said in terms of actual. If that's what you're about,
that's
and a lot of people are, that's good output. Yeah.
Now, I will say, it would be hypocritical not to just say that Pokemon Legends Arceus, which I played, and obviously with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, they've shipped, in my opinion, 2 subpar games in terms of technical performance, and they need to keep an eye on that. They don't need to, because they'll probably still sell loads, but I want them to keep an eye on that, and I think people should start to hold their feet to the fire for that. You don't want this trend setting in when we get a Pokemon game of the year and it's half cooked in some way.
2 Pokemon games.
Two Pokemon games. You don't need that. Someone needs to sit down and go, what are we doing? And Alan goes, you're printing money for me. And I go, no, Alan, we don't even know that. But let's just think about the art of this, the creative juices that are going into this. Like, let's do this properly. And it's always that battle between creativity and business that comes to a head, and I would just want to call that out, like I have done all this year. I think it's fair to criticise, particularly Pokemon this year, in the commercial gangbusters, but we want good games to play at the end of the day, and we can't keep making this excuse of it's good for business, so we understand why they do it. It's like, no, fucking pack your bags and sort yourselves out. Come back when this game's at a level where it's acceptable.
The thing is, though, it requires people to, as you said, like literally not, if it comes out like that, like they've got to take a hit in their pocket, and
they ain't going to do
they're not.
That.
Well, they're not. It's like, well, why Where's the
There's no
where's the
incentive.
consumer pressure?
Yeah, there's no incentive.
Yeah.
But maybe this podcast, maybe they'll listen to this and go, "Oh, better change it."
You're bang to rights, but it's just in the world of reality. Like they'll always go, people accepted it before, they'll accept it again.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, Nintendo, I think overall good year.
Yeah.
A few blips on a technical front, but again, the output.
What'd you give them? An A?
Is that how you grade? Is that how we grade things these days?
I don't know. I was just going to chuck stuff out
American,
there. Like
isn't
if you had to give.
Well,
them
I played 1
a
out of the
grade-
12 games or so. I mean, how do you give that an E in theory, couldn't you? And so that's not good enough. But that'd be just me.
But just on the face of it.
I don't know.
Put him on the pressure. He don't like it.
B
He's
minus, C.
Not familiar
C,
with the grading system.
No, I don't like this. This is American. C plus. Okay, because that Arceus should have been better than it should have been, and so should Scarlet and Violet. The rest of it,
But
good.
12 good games.
Wow.
They get a C plus. I'm challenging him.
You can challenge me all you want. I'm telling you. When you bookend the start of the year with Half-Baked Toot and end it with Half-Baked Toot, that's what I'm going to remember. The introduction and the conclusion to this essay. I'm like, what's gone on there? Bad taste in your mouth. Anyway.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought I'd just put you on the spot and just see what you can chuck out there.
I think C plus, right? That's still good.
It's a pass.
It's a pass, exactly. PlayStation.
Yeah.
A couple of things to talk about. Obviously the games, which we'll get to, but they also launched their expansion into PlayStation Plus, which gave us Essential tier, which is PlayStation Plus as we used to know it, Extra tier, and then the Premium tier. I want to take a moment to speak about these because it's an interesting development. No first-party stuff going on their day one, although it does have a back catalogue of first-party stuff on there. In truth, I've played one game this year, I think, on PlayStation Plus, which was Stray. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
One video game. Now, I must admit, if I had unlimited time and wasn't scared of getting stuck and not being able to finish them, I would have played Demon's Souls and Returnal also, which is on there. They're games I do want to play. I need to know there's nothing coming for 2 months that I desperately want to play.
Clear runway,
yeah. But in general, I think it's been perhaps a necessary move to just show that they are competing. But I think from my perspective, I've not used it as much as perhaps you'd expect for that money. But I always come back to this argument of most people, if you go for that extra tier, which is the middle one, unless you want the latest and greatest, you're going to save a bundle of money because there's just a shitload of games on there. There is tons and tons of options of games that are a year old, 18 months, 2 years, 40. Like, it offers that same kind of level. It's just that the new stuff isn't really firing all cylinders. The premium tier is a disgrace. I don't know what they're doing, this classics catalogue and all that. I can't believe they're charging extra for that. I can't believe that's the top tier. That's like the crown jewel. They're just not treating that very well at all. So the extra tier is the one to go for. And I think most gamers, yes, you don't get your first parties, and everyone's going to go, but you get it on Game Pass. And it's like, well, do you get any games over there? We'll talk about that in a minute. It's like it's irrelevant to most people because you will still save a shitload of money. But you've not been tempted by the dark arts of the PlayStation Plus extra premium or essential. Have you got the standard?
I just got whatever. Yeah,
the internet
essential
to play online. Yeah. Do you even claim the games or not?
Yeah.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
You claim that. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So I claim the games, but yeah, I think to what you said, it's kind of I'm very picky. But I mean, the thing is, you have Sony for the first party games, like and I won't always want to play all of those, and I very rarely do. Like they do a lot of survival horror stuff, and they don't often really tickle me. But I like to have it because there are 1 or 2 games a year that come out that I really do want to play, so I'll have it for that.
Yeah,
talk about a luxury.
Yeah,
but they just don't. You know, there's just nothing really on it. I mean, I looked at that retro one, and it's just like none of the. It's not even got any of the classic PlayStation games on it. It's like, well, what are we doing? Like, I'd love to go back and play some of them, but they're just not even on there. So there's no point in me subscribing to it now until a point when they might be.
What if, say, something like... Because we've not seen something like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart has not appeared on there. It's been over a year. Most people were speculating and me too, like, about the year mark, it seems to be where stuff's dropping on. Would something like that be, if that came on there, would you be tempted to go, well, I'll sign up for a month? I don't even know, this is the thing, I don't even know if it lets you do that. I think it'll ask you to do the rest of your term of your essentials, so that's something to consider. But would something like that, a game that's come out, a couple of years ago, but perhaps you thought, I don't want to pay 70 quid for it, and then you just sort of forgot about it, would that be enough to tempt you back in? To give it
possibly. Go? Yeah, but it really does just depend what's on the runway, what else I want to play, and whether it will really even get a look in. I mean, the thing is that, well, yeah, that's the trouble. And the thing is that Xbox does really well and has done is it goes, well, you can upgrade for 3 months for £1.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And you go, well, all right then.
I'll have to.
And then I'll have to. So I think if PlayStation start considering doing some of that, I'd definitely be sniffing around it. But yeah, it's kind of pointless for me at the minute, I think is the way I'd describe it. And they just haven't got enough on there that would make you go, yep. Not for me anyway.
No. I think normal people could find a use for it because there is just so much on there. But if you're after latest and greatest and you're after big, sexy titles that are coming day one, no.
And no indie, really.
No. Right. We had to be honest, when Stray launched, I was like, okay, this is a really interesting strategy to like pick something that's clearly not as expensive as putting God of War on their day one because the amount of sales you lose. And I thought, they're gonna try with this, but I've yet to see really anything since then arrive on day one. So they kind of.
And then you've got Pentiment appearing and all these sort of different things. I mean, I've played so many different indie games on Xbox Game Pass.
Unpacking.
Oh god, yeah, I forgot about that. But at least it gives you the chance to play it, almost free. I mean, it's not free, but it is as good as.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I feel PlayStation lacks a bit. I mean, I regularly check Game Pass to go, right, what's been added, what's coming off, what's on here at the minute. And I just don't feel like PlayStation would do the same thing.
But is that because you just don't check it? Because you just assume that there's nothing on there for you?
Well, at the moment, I know there isn't, but I would check it.
Have you looked through that list? There's 300 games. Must be one.
Probably could find one that I wanted to play out of 300 if I'm
But I agree, it needs that kind of that draw to get you in to start with, and then once you're there, you're like, well, I've got this for a few months, let's have a look at what else is here.
Yeah, it just isn't really doing that at the minute, but it might do. Again, it's super early days. Xbox Game Pass wasn't what it is now in the super early days, so it's difficult. You shouldn't really, you do compare the two, but to a certain extent you shouldn't because it takes a bit of time to build up a portfolio, a catalogue of games, and get proper engagement and stuff. It takes a little bit of time. So
the counter to that would be that Microsoft have kind of Xbox have set the market, and that's what you're aiming for. So you should come all guns a blazing. But I can go either way on that. I'm like, in a world where Game Pass exists, you can't ignore the fact that that's there, dominating from optical and even from a subscriber base. But on the other hand, in a world of reality, you're kind of like, how could they even do that if they're not willing to do this first party business? Which I
can sort of understand why they wouldn't. I mean, there's very, I mean, even going back over the years, there's very few really, really good first party Xbox games that you would like. I've bought this to play like things like God of War, and really, I bought my PS4 to play Uncharted.
Yeah,
like there's very days on get an Xbox to play. And I'm not sticking the boot in, but I think that's the reason why Sony would probably be reluctant to do that, because they are so good and they're worth getting a console for. If you then start giving it away for nothing, you go, where are you making money?
Yeah, it's a conundrum for everyone involved, and we'll see how it all plays out. In terms of the games, what do we have here? Got two re-releases. Okay, so we've got a remake of The Last of Us Part 1, and then we've got the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, which is Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy, made for, or remastered, I should say, spruced up for PS5. Then we've got the MLB The Show, which is actually available on all platforms now, including Switch. So that's one of the rare ones that comes out of Sony's first-party issues that goes everywhere. Horizon Forbidden West, Gran Turismo 7, and then ended the year with God of War Ragnarok. Now, from my perspective, I like the fact that The Last of Us Part 1 exists. I haven't played it. because it was, I didn't satisfy me enough to say 70 UK pounds. Yes, please, Jim. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection. Oh, I want to play Uncharted 4 again. Of course I do. But again, where's the runway? By the time the runway exists, that'll be in that extra tier, hopefully. So it's kind of like already like those two are like probably won't even think about until they land in that extra tier. MLB The Show is MLB The Show. Very financially successful. People that love baseball, that's the game to play. The equivalent of FIFA almost in that sense. Not quite as successful, but if that's your sport, you're going to be enjoying that game. Gran Turismo 7, sort of race sim arcade dropped out. Very well established franchise. Horizon Forbidden West, sequel to one of my favourite games, and then God of War Ragnarok, also sequel to one of my favourite games. So my general rule of thumb is if you can get 2 crackers out for the year, I'm happy. Like across all platforms. So that's 6 games in theory for me to really divulge into from a first party perspective. So they kind of tick the box there for me. What about for you? Someone who's there just for the exclusives inherently?
Yeah, I mean, potentially could have been interested by Gran Turismo 7, but again, runway's an issue, I think, majority of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I got it predominantly waiting for God of War.
Yeah.
And it delivered, so done. That's what it's there for. If I get one game a year out of this, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And that is such a criminal waste, really, when you break it down to it. But
we've only got so much time anyway. It's the other thing people don't consider. I don't want 12 God of War games that level out every year because you just can't play them all. I don't mind having a bit of a lull or like something that's a bit of a step down or whatever it might be. And again, it's not realistic to expect that either. Like it's just that's not a reality we ever live in. It should be 30 games coming out that are all 90 plus. It's like, are you mad? Yeah.
No, I think they've had a pretty good year. If you've only got that console, there's plenty of play. That's for sure. But yeah, I look for 1, maybe 2 first party games a year if it's kind of in my area of interest. But other than that, I'm happy that I got God of War.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, I mean, God of War Ragnarok. You heard hopefully the Spotlight review kind of last week. Probably the best game I've played since the consoles have launched. I think that's clearly where I'm standing on this. So to have that come out is always going to just supersede almost everything else for the year. So hats off. Under extreme pressure as well to deliver based on how good the first one was. And as I said last week, in my eyes, gets in or around that mark. Although, as I also said, if we sit here in 5 years and that's still number 1, what have we been doing?
Yeah. No, it's a fair point.
What have people been up to? Anyway, the big one. We save Phil to last, friend of the show. Give him a chance to have a few shots of whiskey before he gets to this stage.
Yeah.
Let's start with Game Pass.
Okay.
And obviously the first party stuff we'll come on to. That is part of the Game Pass appeal for me. However, when I look back on what I played this year, I think, I haven't done the maths yet and the year's not over, I think I've played more games on Xbox than PlayStation, played more individual titles. I've just spent more time on the PlayStation platform because the games have kept me kind of more engaged. But in terms of my spread of playability, I've spent a lot of different titles I've managed to get through. In Game Pass, once again, in my eyes, excluding perhaps the first party side of things, is delivered. It's met the requirements, I should say. I'm not saying it's fucking blown my bollocks off and I've been wow, but it's been good enough where I didn't think about I need to get rid of this. And that's kind of.
I wonder whether Xbox for me is kind of. I don't know. I liken them to having 2 cars, right? And I see the PlayStation as the Ferrari.
What's that Nintendo?
You know what I mean? Well, that's just locked away.
Is it a motorbike? Is that how we're going to do it? We're going to say, look, it's for people who want to go on that. They want to go on that motorbike with the PC.
You get lunatics that prefer it, so it's just it's a valid point to make. But I see it as a Ferrari, where you wheel it out for the special occasion. Do Do you know what I mean? Like those cracking Sony first parties, it gets wheeled out for them. Like the Xbox is like the equivalent of like, for me, like the Ford Fiesta or like a Golf or something. It's like your everyday driver, and you want it to do everything really well, but it won't be the fastest. It won't necessarily be the most comfortable. It does everything that you want it to like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where the Xbox is. It's kind of like my daily driver. It's where I play third-party stuff. It's where I play cross-platform stuff. And increasingly now, you don't have to do that. Like, there's things like Discord becoming more readily available and more cross-play and things. It doesn't
get those
really
cheaters
matter.
in all lobbies causing problems.
Indeed. But yeah, I think that's where Xbox have landed up. So. And I think that's pretty much what Game Pass delivers.
Yeah.
It's there. It gives you a lot of these great little titles that you might not otherwise buy or play, and it gives you the great value for money. But that's how I kind of see them. It's like Xbox daily driver, PlayStation for the special events.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's been a good year, definitely. But we have to talk about the game output. I know people want us to dwell on Game Pass and tell them how great it is, and I'm like, it is. But Game Pass is a vehicle to access games.
Yeah,
those games were there. They've been there. They were coming. They were going to be there. Don't worry about it. Like they were happening. You could have gone out and bought them, like especially the indie titles. Some of them are 15 quid a pop, and you wouldn't bat an eyelid normally at doing that. So what I'm saying is, it's not enriching the portfolio of games that we're going to actually get. It's not enriching the new stuff in most cases. There's probably a couple of examples, but we're never going to know exactly whether the Game Pass deal saved production or saved development. I'm not convinced that always happens. So I always come back to the point of, yes, it's a fantastic vehicle to get access to games all the way, and in terms of value, the only thing that beats it in terms of value of access to games is the Epic Game Store, because you don't have to pay nothing for that, and they give you a game away every couple of weeks. It's like, that's just again, it doesn't even seem like that's realistic, and the quality of the games aren't up to snuff usually. But you can't complain because that is actually free. So we've got this vehicle here, which is fine, but it's not adding to the mix, and you get all this money coming in. And I'll say, what are you giving back to me? What are you putting out into the world? Like actually shipping a product out there. And this is what Phil cooked up for us in terms of published titles. I've got the dates here as well, just to help. July. And you go, oh, sorry, you must have missed a bit. No, July, that's where we start. Okay? As Dusk Falls.
Yeah,
I played it. Up my alley. But it's As Dusk Falls. It's a narrative it's a narrative game that is not going to be for most gamers. July again, same day. I don't know what they're doing here. This one's okay. I don't mind this. I actually think we should celebrate these more. Forza Horizon 5 Hot Wheels expansion DLC. I'm totally fine with that making up part of it, because next year we're going to get Horizon DLC as revealed at the Game Awards. I'm going to be super excited about that. I like those little revisits to games that you've been playing. September, Grounded 1.0. And they go, what do you mean by that? I go, well, it's been out a year. It was in early access beta form before that.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a long time, yes. It's been there for a year. But they suddenly said, look, this is 1.0 done. Washed hands of it. All right. I've got Age of Empires 4 Anniversary Edition. That's PC only, and it's an Anniversary Edition, so don't be worried about that. November, Pentiment. I've not played it. I plan to play it. You've played it. We'll get there one day. That will appear at the end of our podcast, no doubt. And that's it.
Do you know what? I was sitting here when we were going to do this, and I was thinking, I can't actually recall like a decent, if you like, or like a AAA first-party title from Microsoft this year.
No, they haven't.
And there ain't.
There isn't. There actually isn't. No. And
because they fucking chucked out that Halo last year.
Yeah, booted that out the door before it was fucking
blew
ready.
it.
The thing is, I know people are saying, well, Grounded and whatnot, but and this is all going to be retrospective kind of logic. They've said they're going to put their games at $70. Okay.
Yeah.
I bet you bollocks, none of these games that come out this year would be at that price.
No.
Or will be retrospectively anyway. I'm not sure they'll retrospectively do it, but I'm almost certain that Grounded's probably the only one that has a chance at doing that, and I would imagine even in a world of $70 games, that would not be that. It would be 40 or 50. In fact, I'm going to open up the Xbox app now. As to whether I should be doing this, given how appallingly kind of unreliable it is, I don't know. So yeah, it actually retailed at $34.99, 35 UK pounds.
Yeah,
so that's
about right.
That if that come out next year after the price raise, that's not being 70 quid. I'm not having it.
No.
So even by their own categorization, they haven't delivered, the top tier premium title at all. And like you said, you have to go back to Halo Infinite for that, which we all know that's turned out this past year. It's just been not very good. Then before that, you go to Forza Horizon 5, which fine, we stamped that in the ground. Before that, you go to August 2021, Psychonauts 2. Again, not a full price game, but I think it's a very good game. People should play it. And then guess what? August of 2021, you go back to when the console launched. Nothing! So it's not like this year has been exceptionally bad in comparison. There's just been so much time since this Series X launched of just nothing. Didn't launch with one single game, and I still blame Phil for making me buy Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That's the only thing. I thought I have to buy something for this bloody box. And now 150 hours later, I'm still there.
Thanks, Phil.
Looking down, staring on the barrel of Dawn of Ragnarok DLCs and shit. It's like, bloody hell. But yeah, anyway, I've ranted there, but...
No, it is. It's so poor. Like, I don't understand. I mean, especially considering you bought Bethesda.
Yeah.
Right. And, they're clearly, obviously, with the Activision Blizzard deal as well, realised that they need to buy this stuff in. Like, for whatever reason, whether they've not got it in-house, I don't know. But they're definitely going down this kind of acquisition route. But everything that they do release as well is delayed and, stuck in, or at least their AAA stuff's like stuck in controversy.
Yeah.
It's like, but surely just build something, build a good game, develop a good game, release it on time.
Nope.
Really simple in my eyes. Or at least, it's...
Maybe it's not. Maybe Nintendo and Sony and From Software are just excelling.
Yeah, but how can they do it?
Well...
And then Xbox just managed to make a real... I mean, you probably look at their model and it is slightly different. You go, all right, that's fine. Like, Game Pass for them clearly has been a game changer in terms of how they generate revenue and how they offer games. Like, fine, I'm okay with that. But even the thing is, Xbox been like it for a long, long time.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When you go back to some of the classic, like, Gears of Wars and
Xbox
things like that,
One, diabolical generation on a whole. So it's not like this is anything new, but I really thought we would be in a better position than we are now, 2 years and change into the consoles. And look, people say, why'd you get so annoyed about the first-party stuff? Like, do you hate Xbox? First ever console I bought with my own money was a 360. Okay. Now, let me read off some of the games that were exclusive, timed or otherwise, to that platform in the first 2 years. Halo 3, Mass Effect, Dead Rising, BioShock, Gears of War, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare, Call of Duty 2, it's because the PS3 wasn't out, Crackdown, Project Gotham Racing 3 and 4, Viva Pinata, Saints Row, the original Prey.
Yep.
That's what I bought. First ever Xbox, first ever console I bought with my own money without it coming from Christmas or parents. I bought into that and I had all this and I thought, wow.
360 was an unbelievable generation.
I was like, this is fucking brilliant. And then what have we had the first 2 years this time? Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5, Flight Simulator, I forgot to mention that earlier, Pentiment, Tunic, which was a timed exclusive, Grounded, The Ascent, another timed exclusive, 12 Minutes, that's your lot. BioShock, Gears of War, Mass Effect, Halo 3. Most of those games aren't first party, but they were still dealing in making and bringing it to the platform first.
Yeah.
Because PS3 hadn't come out for one reason, I will admit that. But they were doing the deals and making sure their platform had those games on there.
It's interesting that they don't seem to do... Like, unless it's coming out of their studios, they don't seem to be that fussed about doing these.
No, it's telling.
Exclusives.
It is telling because next year we're going to have probably a similar situation in terms of Final Fantasy 16. That's going to be a timed exclusive on PS5 now.
Yeah,
Sony
yeah.
aren't making that. They've bunged the cash that way, but it will make their platform attractive to that audience just for that reason. And fair enough, Microsoft don't want to play that game, but I'll tell you what, when I got the Xbox 360, and it was the day of, I remember getting it, and it was like the day of like the PS3 price being announced. It was like 600 quid or something, and I was like, I ain't getting that. I went down Game Station and bought the 360 that day. And I remember looking over the fence when it first come out after, and I was like, I can't believe I'm luck here.
Yeah.
I'm missing nothing over that side because PS3 was floundering for years and years, and I guess I was spoiled to a certain extent. That generation was silly in general. Like across that whole 360 and PS3, we've got so many good games. I think across the entire kind of platform wars or whatever. But when people say, "Well, why don't you care that much?" It's like, well, I had that
because they can do it.
They can. They have done it. They have done it. They've wrangled the third parties. They've got the exclusivity. They've pumped out their own games. Brand new fucking Gears of War IPs, concluding Halo.
And instead, nowadays we get Outriders.
Yep.
Which it ain't anywhere near the caliber of what they've chucked out before.
No.
So
anyway,
yeah, disappointing. But Game Pass, it does
it's a secret weapon.
Game Pass, saves it. Like literally, unbelievable, really.
Which is why I think when Phil says it's profitable, I hope he's not lying because
if it ain't, they're in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it really would be a strange thing to do. And to be fair, I mean, a lot of their year has been dominated by this fucking Activision Blizzard debacle. That's all anyone's spoken about, and partly because, as we just reeled off there, Pentiment Grounded, Forza Horizon 5 DLC, As Dusk Falls aren't going to move the needle.
No.
They simply will not.
Phil must know that.
Well, Phil's out there, not Phil, but they were talking, Grounded's got 15 million players, it's it. I was like, well, that's sort of impressive, isn't it? 15 million players, that's quite a lot. That's more than God of War sales. All right? And then I looked, didn't I? Dug a bit deeper. Right, what are the most played games on Xbox? They do a little chart. It's 50 games here. Grounded must be in there if it's that popular. Nope. There you go, apps. They must be just like the creme de la creme, those 50 titles. And I was like, you probably are. What's this? Sea of Thieves. That's 5 years old. That's still in there. That's a success. Insurgency Sandstorm. What's that? Farming Simulator 2022. Here's the real stinger. For Honor. Do you remember that game?
I do.
That's in the top 50. Battlefield 2042. Broken as shit. PUBG.
Making a comeback, apparently.
Well, yeah. Fallout 76. Another unmitigated disaster.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Warframe. Not slagging that off, but Skyrim. What's it doing there? Dead by Daylight. So I'm not slagging those games off. I'm saying that is not a... that's a strange hodgepodge of games. If you had a true success on your hand, you'd expect you expect Grounded to be above at least For Honor. And it ain't. Sims 4. The Hunter, Call of the Wild. I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What's this? MLB The Show 2022. That's right. That's what it's last year's one. I was about to really let off, but no, that's fine. Anyway, enough of that. But yeah, not a good year. 2023 though.
Who wins it? Who wins 2022 for you?
Well, it's PlayStation. It is, isn't it? That's a personal thing.
Winners. Jim wins.
Like I say, if you produce one game as good as God of War Ragnarok, I'm likely going to be happy with your platform. 2, I'll be over the moon. Any more than that, and I'll be like, hang on, calm down. Let's space these out a little bit, shall we? And yeah, I mean that's complete personal opinion, but it's always going to be based on the video games, not the access to them or how you pay for them or the financial model. It's like I'm spending my time. Which I get paid fucking fortunes to this podcast. My time is worth a lot more than what people think. Millions of quid potentially, obvious lie, but that's how I always view it because that's ultimately what's more precious at that stage. You can make, we said it before, you can make gaming as cheap as you want. Wait 5 years and it'll be a fiver.
Yep.
and then
Or free.
You're free, and you'll be laughing. But
Giving it away.
any final words for Xbox and Phil, because they've been heavily crapped on. Then I feel like I've just shouted them down. Maybe you can offer some, guiding light for them and say, look, it wasn't all that bad, or maybe you want to just lay the boot in on top of him and say that's, that's not good enough for me.
I really do think though they need to get next year right. Like I think Starfield has to be a success.
Yep.
Like
big pressure.
And anything, I think because then you start going, well, there's a bit of a barren run on here. Like
of many,
they
go on barren runs. They crack 2 games out in a week and then go, see you in 7 months. What are you doing?
I just think that I don't know. I mean, what do people buy these for? They buy them for the Halos, the Gears of Wars. Like that's what you want from an Xbox, and they haven't delivered on that stuff for a long time. And I think they need to. I really just think they need to start somehow getting something from their studios that's good.
Yeah.
When you were going back to Crackdown that they released, the last Crackdown, and like how much of a fuck up that was. Like,
Crackdown honestly, 3, Christ, forgot about that. Yeah.
It's just like you name it. It's just like disaster after disaster all the time. And obviously without Game Pass, I dread to think where they'd be. Really.
Yeah, they'd save their skin massively, I think, and too right to a certain extent, like we just talked about. Great service, but I want more great games to be put in the ecosystem. I don't need the walls to be brought down.
Well, the thing is, it's all great because they go, we'll stick all of our first-party games on their day one. You're like, well, that's excellent, but there's just nothing. There's nothing. I mean, it's just nothing to play, and what there is to play is not that good, unfortunately, at the moment, for one reason or another. So
if Starfield comes out next year, which I'm assuming it does, hope it doesn't get delayed again, and it's really good. Like, let's say it's fucking absolute quality. Just one game like that will buy, in my mind, like some sort of...
Gives you another 12 months.
Yeah, it buys you like time, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to have... I'm going to love it, but it's not realistic, as we said, but it kind of gives you a little bit of like money in the bank almost.
One good game a year is all these have got to churn out, in my view. That's it. Like, you don't... From their first-party studios, at least. Like, they don't need to do any more than that, because the third-party stuff and the cross-platform stuff keeps it ticking over. Like, they'll do their thing, but they need to be churning out at least one good, like God of War or Horizon or whatever it is. Like, they need one of them a year, I think, to keep people on side. Yeah. And let's be honest, Xbox haven't churned one out. Well, how far back do we go?
Let's have a look. I mean,
this is what I mean. How far back do you go?
I'm not doing that for effect. I'm genuinely trying to find something.
Some people might be saying Sunset Overdrive.
That was the fucking first year. That's a great game. That is a great game. I don't think they've had. Honestly, I don't think they've had it. But something like Ori and the Will of the Wisps, maybe, which isn't. Again, if we're talking about these $70 games, these top tier ones, that ain't going to be priced at that. But that generally well received, as was the Blind Forest. Gears 5.
Toss.
Well,
I didn't like that.
It'll be Forza Horizon 4 what people point to.
Well, yeah,
and I think
you can have Horizon.
They can have that. It was 2018 though. And then you had Forza Horizon 5, which was obviously last year. So,
and they've been really well received. But you can't just chuck out. It's like PlayStation chucking out Gran Turismo and just going, "Yep, done."
That's yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but
not good enough.
One race in Arcus, you can't have that. Like
you can, and Phil said that's what we're doing. I mean, it's been just this is going back to 2014. It really has been that long where they've struggled in that sense, and I don't know whether that's because, in my opinion, Sony's games have just been so. They seem like they've had one a year at least. Like we were talking about that sort of regular, and it just ties you over. It just gives you something to hang your hat on. You think that was a really great experience.
Games. Yeah, you can have good games, like loads of good games. That's fine, but surely you need that landmark.
You want a true great.
Yeah, like something that's when we talk about this, you go, that's like when you talk about God of War, you go, it's done.
Yeah,
like it's signed, sealed, and delivered for me.
Yep. Perfect.
Everything else is irrelevant, and that's where it struggles. You sort of go, well, yeah, there's been some good games, but you need those 90 plus. That's what you need. You need like a 94, 95 game out of 100
Wants
to
it for the
really.
FGL League.
Well, no, you do though, because that's when you
after.
break it down to it. That's what you're after, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe, hopefully, Starfield will be that. Let's hope. And the thing is, they keep saying that talk is cheap. It's time to get on with it now. You've had 2 years where you've had a couple of. It's just called Forza Horizon great, so we don't get fucking crapped on by that lot. Let them have that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But outside that, it really hasn't been even. It hasn't even been a consistent good. There's not been a consistent good title coming every half a year. Even it's just been a bit all over the place.
Sporadic.
Yeah, and you can make an edge case and shut everything we said down and say, well, Pentiment and Grounded and As Dusk Falls. And it's like, yeah, okay, but I think generally we're not being unfair here, considering Phil's friend of the show. He has to get crapped on now and again, unfortunately. And he's had a nightmare week last week, and then he just wants the year to be over, I think. He's like, scrap this 2022. What a load of old toss.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a tough run of it, old Phil. But if you're at the head of the pack, which he was, you're there for you're there to be overtaken, and at least in terms of first party games, Sony are just way over and above where Microsoft are now. I mean, arguably, they're just offering two different experiences. It's kind of like they've got this huge catalogue of stuff that you want to play, and all this third party stuff, and a few good first party titles a year. Or you can come over to Sony and play all these brilliant generational games, but you've not got this huge back catalogue of stuff and bits and bobs that you can play. So, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you compare two and say they should be offering like for like, but they really don't.
No, they don't. They are completely different ecosystems. Things like Deathloop, which wasn't on Xbox last year, was there this year. So people will point to that and say, "Well, we got that." But they don't. These two in particular don't operate in a vacuum. They absolutely are competing side by side. They offer such a similar product in terms of power, in terms of everything about them is very, very similar. They're clearly going after the same kind of market. And as we said, we got the motorbike nut jobs on PC and fucking Nintendo doing what they're doing, but they're off doing that. Anyway, I'll be amiss to leave Xbox alone, but not speak about the best of the rest. And really, I could have done like a big, all these great third-party games in it, but really, it would be dishonourable and wouldn't give it justice not just to say Elden Ring, unbelievable success critically, unbelievable success commercially. From Software and Bandai Namco, I bet they can't even count the money that's coming. It's past 17.5 million sales.
It's insane.
From a studio which is making games like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, which great games in their own right, but have never really broken through as
not been like mainstream.
Not been a mainstream success. And then now Elden Ring comes along and goes, yep, there you go, we've done that. So I'll end it on that, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the right place to end it.
Give Elden Ring their flowers, pay some respect to the Game of the Year, according to the Game of the Year Awards, which is the media awards for all intents and purposes. And Elden Ring really did just dominate the zeitgeist, the optics, the sales. That's just an unmitigated success. I normally say unmitigated disaster, but that really was just... Whoops, what have we done here? We've created an absolute moment, and it's great to see that come along now and again. Anyway, we're going to transition to some impressions as we do, and this will be the final segment of the year of our regular episodes. I said the quizzes come in at least in the next couple of weeks in a bonus stage. It's not a different feed, it's just going to be labelled as a bonus episode, so look out for it there. And obviously if you're on YouTube, it'll just be chucked on the channel. Well, look, from you, Logan, thanks for joining me on this episode, but also the other episodes that you've been a part of. It's helped out the scheduling massively. I feel like I've lent on you too much, worn you out, got a bit of grey in your beard now, so I'll try and balance the balance it a bit more next year. Give you a couple of weeks off now and again. I know you do enjoy it, but you'll get tired of this nonsense of me talking at you for an hour. But no, thanks for being so flexible and available. And obviously thanks to Adkins as well, carried a lot of the water as well. And thanks to the other people that have appeared on various bonus bits or... You know, we did a spoiler cast from Horizon with Evan from Pixel Pints, 3.5 hours long. Fucking gave up his whole Sunday for that, basically. So, anyone that's appeared this year, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. And obviously, again, if you've listened to this far, if you've listened to our other episodes, if this is your first episode, we thank you for your time for that. But it's time to transition. I don't know what I'm going to put in there yet. So, this is one of those rare moments where I'm going to say the audience knows more than I do. But we will see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some game impressions to close out this edition of Idle Game Chat, and in fact, close out the year of 2022. This one is going on the very last genuine episode. It's actually being recorded in sync with the main podcast bit. So usually this stuff's recorded and it might not go on a week later, but this is as close as we've had it for a while. So double Friday recording for me. This is it. It's how we close the year out properly. Our proper podcasts do it. And they go, well, they'll do it all seamlessly. And it's like, well, I ain't doing that. Let's not get silly about it. We've got our own little ways. Make us a success. Anyway, the Callisto Protocol is what we've wrote in the show notes, so we best do that.
Do that one.
Little bit of... trying to think of the best ways. Let's do a bit of cards on the table first. It's a difficult one because this is a brand new kind of franchise, brand new
what do we do?
team.
Do we do the Dead Space or do we do Sledgehammer?
Striking distance. Yes, well look, it's a survival horror-esque game. It's a sci-fi. I guess like the tone of it and like the setting, you would immediately think Dead Space, even without sort of. I mean, the guy that gets touted is Glenn Schofield, isn't it? He's the one who's everyone's saying, "Oh, he's brainchild of Dead Space and whatnot." But so let's start with that. I mean, Dead Space. It's a long time ago. What's that? 2008, 2009. I mean, bloody while ago. And we've got this remake coming in about a month or so.
Gold.
It's gone gold, is it?
Gone gold yesterday.
Oh,
it was all day. So
no delays on that then, with any luck. Well, we said that about Cyberpunk, and it did get delayed.
Yeah,
but what's your what are we doing with these survival horrors? Maybe start with Dead Space first, because that's the one that everyone seems to want to compare it to. But then generally on survival horror or horror type games.
Horror. I enjoy them. I like the idea of them more than I enjoy them. Only in the sense that I've become a baby.
Well, become?
Well, exactly. I've consistently been a baby.
Was he a baby all along?
I was a baby all along, but I really like them. But they really do freak me out because of how fucking immersive it is.
Yeah,
immersive it is. It really takes its toll on me. Probably it started with Silent Hill. But again, I was too scared to play that the whole way through that. Then obviously it went through to the Resident Evil, our long-standing history with that. And then, I can't think of it much else in between Resident Evil, up until probably words definitely weren't on release. But I remember working at Lloyd's and a fella lent me Dead Space.
Oh.
And I ended up 1 and 2. I think 1 and 2 were out.
Yeah, I played it like that.
And then 3 was coming out that year, I think. Yeah, so I did that. And I ended up even at the DVD, like an anime DVD, and I borrowed that as well. And I ended up going through 1 and 2 and fucking loving them. But I just remember playing 1, and I remember my hands just pouring with sweat. Just like I was physically sort of like not wanting to go back to it because I knew it was going to be. It was going to jump scare me and shit the life out of me. But I was so enjoying the sort of fucking setting, the vibe of it, that I was loving it. It made me go back. I was sort of really having to force myself. So yeah, it's like a love-hate relationship with these type of games. I love the setting and love the experience, but hate playing them at the same time because I'm a sucker for just an easy breeze, and these are sort of they're taxing on the fucking like. I don't know. We were saying this when we first played this, weren't we? It was like you play a game, and certainly for yourself, you fucking just absolutely shag the life out of them, and you really stick some hours in, and you're going much like what we did with God of War. I don't feel I could play the games of this ilk like that because they're so more taxing on you. And
yeah, they are taxing, and just, I get it not. When I get a survival horror or horror type game, for some reason, like I've played the first session, and I'm always looking for like an exit. I'm like, right, after this bit, I want to get out of here. I'm like,
that's it.
Sort of pretend to myself like I've done a good job and I've earned the break. And then what typically happens is they play on my mind. I want to go back. I don't know what it is. I get drawn back into them more often than I should. And with the Callisto Protocol, I remember saying to you, I was like, right, I'm going to play like once every other day, like chip through it. And I didn't. Like, I literally went back on the Sunday, went back on, I think it may have been like an evening of sorts, and just put about 5 hours into it and really like broke the back of it at that point. And then, I was at the end by the end of the week, basically.
But it's a good reason why they are this sort of, they're not overly long. I don't know if I could handle a 40-hour campaign like this.
I think that is a fair comment, and there's definitely one thing that's popped out of some of the criticisms of this game is its length. But I tend to agree, like a 30-hour scarefest, I'm not sure I would cope or necessarily find that enjoyable. But in general, I don't know when I started liking survival horror games. I kind of just always have. I mean, they're always rock hard when I was younger. Like, I couldn't complete any of them. Like, impossible. Dino Crisis is probably the first one I remember playing, and that was playing around that Johnson character's house, and it was just a fucking disaster. We were so bad at it, we never got far at all.
Nah, so much harder. You didn't have no fucking guys. Well, you did, but they were in magazines that fucking had to be purchased.
Yeah, and these days they're a bit of a rare breed. You don't really see too many of them. We've had the revival of Resident Evil 2 remake, which I think, in terms of like outside of survival horror, is just one of the great games of last gen in its entirety. And then before that, even we had The Evil Within 1 and 2, which had its faults, the first one, but the second one I really enjoyed. I thought that was solid.
Yeah. Well, you're getting this sort of subgenre now where we're born on the fucking third person games, and you've got this sort of first person army that is coming through. Even the Resident Evil gang have joined that, but you've got all those other games you play them, like fucking Outlaw. I couldn't play that. I find that even more immersive and even more taxing. Something like Outlast, Layers of Fear, even Alien Isolation is another.
I got through that. Yes,
would you even go as far as play something like that Forest? It's like a fucking survival horror.
I think that's okay. That one. I think it's more of a survival game than it is horror from what I've seen. Yeah. But it's true. Actually, the first person kind of spin on it. You know, Outlast was the first one I kind of remember. I think it was on PlayStation Plus, like early in the gen. Like, it's one of the first games I got on PlayStation Plus for the PS4. And then obviously Resident Evil 7 came out, and it was like, after 6, it was all like, what's going on with that franchise? And it was like, oh, they've really knocked out the park. And then we had Resident Evil Village, although they've added a third-person mode to that, and also the DLC is in third-person only. But I say all that to say that generally I like these games, and they are such a rare breed. I mean, you're lucky if you get one a year, really. I mean, to be quite frank. But when they come along, I typically like to dive in. Now, with the Callisto Protocol itself, let's develop by striking distance. Brand new team.
Cool.
So
the A grade.
They've just been absolutely come out of nowhere. Crafton, are the publisher who do PUBG, publish that. So they're sort of under that umbrella. Yeah, under that umbrella. As we said, old Glenniff of Schofield's lurking. Now, I was trying to find...
Phil's cousin.
Yeah. Okay, he's going around his Christmas. I was trying to see when Striking Distance formed. I think it was like in my head I've got it as 2019. So it's not It's
So
it's not long at all. It's either
What's the
2019 or
last-
2018.
It's part, aren't they? Some of the old Sledgehammer devs, is that right?
Well, Glenn left. What would it have been? Christ, who
EA?
did Visceral did
Visceral,
Visceral,
that's
done Call of Duty for a while somewhere. I can't remember which studio it was, and then
No.
kind of reformed this team.
Got a
But
feeling the last one they did was that Infinity War
yeah, he may have been involved with that. Yeah,
one that had like Spacey in it and McGregor and
that's
all that.
it. Oh, yeah, wasn't Lewis Hamilton in that one as well?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Jon Snow.
Christ. But yeah, in any case, he kind of left and then formed this new studio, handful of years ago, and then in 2022 we're getting to play the Callisto Protocol. So it's worth pointing out that this is a first go for them. They've had to staff up, incubate this idea and deliver it. Let's go through what we've got on the store page. It's actually got like a little custom store page, it looks like, here on the PlayStation Store. We both played it on the PS5. That is important to note. Now, whilst performance has improved along PC and the series consoles, wasn't a good store at launch for those. So if you're seeing reviews where they're like, the performance is garbage, it's not optimized, I would say for the most part on the PS5 it was fine. In fact, it was very good, and we'll get into that in a bit more deeper, but that's the version we played. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I know it was bad on PC, so I'm going to criticise it. The experience I had was pretty good. In any case, PS5 store. In this narrative-driven third-person survival horror set 300 years in the future, you take the role of Jacob Lee, a victim of fate thrown into the Black Iron Prison, a maximum security penitentiary located on Jupiter's moon, Callisto. When the inmates begin to transform into monstrous creatures, the prison gets thrown into chaos. To survive, Jacob must battle his way to safety to escape Black Iron Prison while uncovering the dark and disturbing secrets buried beneath the surface of Callisto. Using a unique blend of shooting and close quarters combat, Jacob will need to adapt his tactics to combat the rapidly evolving creatures while scavenging to unlock new weapons, gear, and abilities to outrun the growing threat and escape. Outlast. They should have done that play on words. The growing threat and escape the horrors of Jupiter's dead moon. So that's the setup. Obviously, it's all marketing ploy, but what do you make of that? Close?
Yeah, I think that gives it a fair description of what it is. I think they got that right, to be fair.
Yeah.
There is much more than any of these games that we've played, these survival horror. Melee combat is a big focus in this game.
Yeah, and that's what kind of sets it apart in many ways, I would say.
Yeah.
I should mention, actually, I listened. There's a prequel podcast series they did.
Oh, Law being dished out, and I'm missing it.
Starring, who's that big, giant blonde lady in Game of Tarth?
Oh, yeah.
She's in Brienne Tarth. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's in that. So I listened to that. It was okay. It's a bit weird listening to like a full... You don't, to be honest, there's nothing in there that would have added to the experience, I would say.
Right.
You get a bit of an understanding of perhaps what you might encounter because they kind of bump into them. But it's there for people if they want to listen to that, if they've played the game and missed it. I think it's called Helix Station. And just put Callisto Protocol. It's 6 episodes, only about 25 minutes long. So worth a watch. What I would say from a technical perspective and just the looks, this game I thought looked phenomenal.
And talk about next gen.
Yeah, I mean, it is on PS4 and Xbox One. Digital Foundry have put a video up. I suggest people look there to see performance on that if that's the place you're looking to play. But on PS5, I put it on, took it straight off the quality mode, which has the ray tracing, which looked great. I'm not going to knock that. Annoying thing about that little small thing, you have to go out of the game and do it for the main menu and then change it. Most games you just go in the menu.
Takes away the menu as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you can't actually do that in game. You have to start the game, in the title menu, do it there, and then load your actual save up. But chucked it onto performance mode, which has no ray tracing and drops obviously a bit of resolution, but still, I was like, wow, this is highly polished product that I don't know. I don't normally expect to see that in survival horror. There's
No.
always a bit of like slop that comes along with it, a bit of
There
scruffiness.
is normally.
But this was phenomenal
May
looking and ran pretty good as
even
well.
Go as far as saying it's certainly up there.
Best
May
looker.
even be the best looking game on that PS5 so far. Just the
Very good.
variety of environments and just like there's so many times I just stopped. I didn't really use that. There is a photo mode.
There's a trophy.
I didn't realise. I was so scared. I should have kept doing that. Actually, probably quite a good idea just to span and see what's fucking coming up behind you.
Yeah.
But no, just the amount of times I'll be walking down a corridor and the lighting.
The lighting is fucking quality.
It's one of the most atmospheric games. That is a character in itself in this game. Is just the atmosphere throughout. There's just that constant feel of dread.
Yeah.
Metroid need to take something. That game was phenomenal, but it didn't make me feel like this game. This game, I fucking you just have that sense of dread throughout the whole way. They've cleverly done it. Like they took this from Dead Space. Obviously, I suppose you can't take your own thing. He came up with it.
He stole it.
They would just have long corridors that were filled with fucking steam or smoke or fog, and then they'd have a fucking vent at the end of it, and that's all it was. It was there's no enemies, nothing. There's just a hallway and a vent, and that is enough for you to go, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Crapped in trousers time.
It did just drip in atmosphere, but yeah, graphics wise, it's a shame. If I'm going to do another playthrough, I think, and what I'd like to do is, it'd be fucking tough after playing on that thing, is go through on the quality mode just to see the extra quality, but at that fucking back down to 30 scrub, that could be that could be a killer. Yeah. But just because of how good it looked, like you say, we were both jaw dropped on the performance mode where you're taking that little tiny bit of a hit, but it still was incredible.
Yeah.
It's
a beautiful looking game and really does build the atmosphere that's kind of required for a survival horror game to have that. You want to be in that zone with it. You don't want to be just la-di-da roaring around. No. I'm sure some people are like, I never get scares. Okay, fine, but I was gripped by this, and the visuals had a large part to play, and also I know you didn't quite get to experience this, but the audio on headphones, even on the TV, I'm sure it was fine, but the headset or the headphones that I had on, the Pulse ones, 3D audio, honestly, it was fucking incredible as well. And
what I will do with this is I managed to keep it on medium settings on this difficulty wise.
Yeah.
But any other thing I will find to try and prolong the scareness, I will keep this fucking light on. I will not sit in the dark. I will play in the hours of daylight when there's other people in the house. I will baby it as much as I can.
No, well, it's funny because the audio is obviously more immersive. Like you can't, jump scares. But I'll tell you what, when things kick off, it's so helpful to just hear when things are coming up your arse, and it really was like having like another sense. It sounds stupid, but it's so accurate that I was able to hear them scrabbling around in the vents above or below me, thinking, right, that's going to come behind me now, and you hear it go boom, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to get done by this guy now. So it did actually add an extra layer of strategic kind of excellence for me. But I think the visuals and the sound, building the actual atmosphere of this place is fantastic. We need to talk about the combat, because this has been contentious, I think, and it's unique in many ways.
It is unique, it's a great idea, a brilliant idea, but the execution of it lacks a bit. I get what they were going for. It was, like you say, like we said at the beginning, the combat in this game is what sets it apart from others. You have the stomp, the Dead Space stomp. I don't know I don't care what you say. That is the Dead Space stomp.
That has always been known as that.
That is always the thing.
It's a good stomp as well. This version
stomp.
of it, great effort.
Exactly the same.
So if the remake comes out and the stomp's not up to scratch,
exactly.
Ticking the blocks of Glenn, he's going to be cackling with a little whiskey.
He's nicked that. But no, it's all about this dodge.
Yes.
And I'd even say, I go as far as say block, but To be honest, it's another tool in your arsenal, but not a helpful one.
No, and just to
I
set,
didn't use it, mate.
No, I didn't either. Set some context of how it works. Like the block,
Right,
you just simply hold back on the left stick. So the stick you move your character with, and he'll put his hands up with the baton, and it'll block the attack, but you take a little bit of damage. In that case, you can't keep doing that. So what the game instructs you to do, and kind of from the early on gives you a tutorial, is to dodge. So you can dodge melee attacks, and you can dodge combinations as well. And the way you do that is not through a button press. Again, it's all tied to the left stick. So when an attack is incoming, you can hold any direction to start with. If the attack's coming from the right, you can dodge right if you really want to. The animation will work for you, but you have to be holding that left stick in a direction, left or right, before the attack gets to you. And you've got plenty of time. Then when there's a second attack coming from a combination, you have to switch sides. So if you dodge left, you've got to then dodge right. Then you've got to dodge left, then right, or right, then left. And you can bob and weave, basically. If they do a 3-bit combo, you go bang, bang, bang. And you will not take a shred of damage. No. Doesn't matter how close it looks like it's going to get, you will be immune from damage if you can time it right.
I remember our first conversation after like the first night of it.
Yeah.
And we both went into it thinking that it was going to be like a parry system. So we were both trying to time it left and right. And then it was when you text me and you went, I think I figured it out. I think you just need to go into an enemy holding that controller ready. Exactly that. And once it clicks,
that's it. That's exactly it. Because early on, even though it clearly says in the tutorial, because I read it, it says you don't need to time this. You just need to be holding it before the attack hits you. And
I don't think it helped coming straight off the back of God of War.
No, we've got the parry system.
That combat is.
Yeah.
You're constantly parrying on there.
Of course. And that's all to do with timing, isn't it? And there's certain attacks that you can only parry, so you have to wait till they've got near you. So there's an adjustment there, because this is not how most games work. Most games are to do with timing. Now, there is actually a little small mechanic in there that I rarely hit, but there is a perfect dodge in this, where if you dodge just before, it will slow down time and give you just a little bit of extra breathing room.
But I also figured that you cannot press a direction with that. It can only be pressed with I think it's the circle button, or whatever, circle or B it would be.
Yeah.
But I found that if you held a left or right, you would not get that perfect dodge. Oh. You had to. It was like a sort of it was almost like a sort of like it's basically like a boxing simulator.
Yeah.
You've got the dodge, the bobbing and weaving, and this is the sort of feint, the backwards feint almost.
My advice is not to chase that. It's of no value when you're in trouble. Like, it's cool because it slows down. I think I did it it might have been like in one of the last zones. I was like, oh, I've never done that before.
I think there's a trophy to it.
Got to do 5 of them during it. I didn't get it. No, I didn't get close.
I think I'd done it to get what's it called. I didn't find it was very helpful during combat.
No, yeah. So the advice is for people, just stick to the standard dodge, and you will not. You can't get hit. Now that's obviously a caveat. If there's other enemies lurking, or if there's ranged enemies, they're going to hurt you still. You can't just avoid them. But I actually quite liked once that clicked in my head, I found it really easy. Like, not the game easy, but I found the dodging really easy. I knew exactly what was expected of me. And nearly every time I got hit, I knew it was my fault. Often I would take damage when I was trying to hit them and they were trying to hit me. Like, I thought their combo had ended, and I would get a bit like, oh, my chance now. And you both clatter each other and you sort of trade. So
I would have liked them to maybe shake up the combinations a bit more. I was expecting, like, the further you got on, they were sort of like repetitive, because it was pretty much at the beginning that like some were throwing 2, then you get the odd one that would throw 3 combos. I thought they were really going to change it up. So
10 combos.
To me, it was. I suppose in a way, in hindsight, it was quite helpful, because if you're getting further on into the game and you get more enemies, then, you know, if they're chucking 4 or 5 hit combinations and you're just dodging left and right the odd time, that probably would get on your tits, to be fair. But
so you mentioned that you said it was a good idea, but didn't like the execution of it.
The execution, what I found is that system was fine. I found that really good, like a brilliant way of using melee combat, a great game, like I say, a game changer in terms of it's felt unique and perfect for this setting. However, when I felt when you started to include other enemies, it was fine on a one-on-one combat, but once you you're in a corridor with 3 or 4 different enemies, it felt weird. You could sort of see the other enemies just waiting in line for you to finish this sort of combat. And then every now and again, you'll just get a whack from behind.
Yeah.
Because there's no, I think this is intentional. They didn't have it. Was the quick turn like you'd expect?
Yeah.
In the Resident Evil, like I think in 2, the remake, and 3, you had down and circle, and you quickly turned 180 degrees. It feels like you should be able to do that in this game, but I think it's that they intentionally didn't put that in for that sense of dread that you can't see what's behind you. It's a very slow melee focused game, isn't it? You're not fucking whipping around like this.
No, it is at a plodding pace. Like even when Jacob's a slow old boy, he's taking his time. He's frightened.
Yeah.
He don't want to be. He don't want to be roaring around. Yeah, the only thing really you get, I didn't discover until later on, is you can hold like the sprint button and move backwards. And you sort of jog back.
Okay.
That can give you a bit of... No, it could have been useful in some certain situations.
Yeah.
I never thought to try it, but yeah, that gave me a little bit of breathing room. But there is no quick turn, which means when people get up your arse, you know, it's a case of doing something to get rid of them. But they do give you other tools. We've got you've got the stun baton to smash and caves heads in. Then we've got a standard sort of slew of guns. I think there's like 5 or 6 of them. I really like, just on a side note, how you upgraded those weapons in the 3D printer. Like, it's all puts the model up and then it goes bzz, 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 paints it all on.
Fucking expensive.
Well,
I say that.
You've got Callisto credits, so there is a upgrading system where you can pick up credits, and it's not paid. Don't worry, this is all in-game stuff. This is like they're basically saying, "Oh, there's these little 3D printers lurking for."
Get a pre-order bonus for something to sell, which could potentially be seen as that. But
it's pay to win.
To be fair, that gave me very little advantage.
Oh, yeah. When you told me how much it was, I was like, yeah, that's not gonna.
Yeah, exactly.
That won't get you very far. So there's a whole upgrade, upgrade and building system that's lurking there. And the 3D printer is really cool when that fires off and upgrades your weapon. I really like that. No, the thing, like I said about the execution of it, I think it worked really well one-on-one. It was just that there was a few times throughout the game it just felt like I was getting frustrated by it, because of it didn't feel as flowing as I felt it should be with multiple enemies. Because I'd deal with one enemy, managed to put him down. By the time it sort of the animation turning around to the next bloke, if it was a big fucker, he's already hit me on the floor, and I've gone straight down on the floor. Wow. I felt like there was one time I went down on the floor, got back up, and just done it again and knocked me back on my feet. And I was like a stun lock. Exactly, yeah. So I'd say throughout overall, it was enjoyable, and like I say, the more you get. At first, I was really struggling with it. I was getting fucking died throughout this game. Yeah. Shit ton of times, unbelievable shit times. It's not as hot. It's completely different to like a fucking Elden Ring. It's not. Yeah, what I found was early on I died a lot. Then I went through like a middle stretch where I very rarely died, maybe once per like chapter. They're like hour and a half long. I did a good run. Then as it ramps up towards the back end, I was like, okay, it's pushing back a little bit here. I was able to sort of manage. And what I discovered really was using another mechanic we haven't talked about, is this grip. Oh yeah, which is basically a telekinesis thing where you can suck enemies towards you and then throw them, and you can throw them into environments. So there's sometimes grinding gears that you can throw them. So you can throw them over the edge of places. You can throw them onto spiked walls, which I don't know what they're doing up in the fucking prison.
Prison.
Fucking jocking those up everywhere. But they're useful in this instance. And what I realised was that's the key really, is being able to use that to thin the numbers quickly, or at least get people away so you can deal with the enemies in a one-on-one situation and then finish them off.
And throwing them at them.
Not really. I didn't find that to be all that effective. It seemed like a waste of the battery. I'd rather just pick the bastard up and chuck.
There was a system. I think like you had a very small inventory space in there. It's quite that again, adding to it sort of Resident Evil-esque survival scene. Do you remember you had the fucking really small inventory and you have to fucking sort of pick what you're going to have in there. There was something like if you had a battery, it was worth fuck all. I think it was worth about 10 Callisto points.
Oh yeah,
get rid of them because they're just filling up. But I think there was something in there that filled your battery up. But
so essentially those
Just kept chucking them away.
Yeah, those batteries basically. If you can't keep using the grip constantly.
No.
It's got a battery on the back of his neck that's shown. If you've got a battery in your inventory, rather than it just crapping out on you and failing, it will automatically put the battery in and recharge you so you can keep going. So they are useful in certain scenarios where there's a lot going on. But over time, your grip will recharge if you don't use it. So you can kind of sort of sandbag it and be slower to get through.
I think that's why that combat, the melee combat as a whole, saying the execution was poor, it felt passable and more varied because you had all these different options. You didn't have to just deal with that.
No.
As soon as, like I say, with that one-on-one combat, that was perfectly fine. You could dispatch an enemy. Once you got 3 or 4, then you could go, right, fuck it, I'm going to use this telekinesis, or I'm going to use your gun.
Get your shotgun out, And then also you had the one thing we haven't spoken about is the enemies. There's a little bit of enemy variety of like bigger ones, faster ones, shorter ones. They've all got reasonably kind of different models. But one of the key things is that during the game at some point, quite early on, they have this mutation mechanic where if you start damaging an enemy but don't quite finish them off, all these tentacles will start coming out of their body. And if you don't finish them off before that process finishes, they will mutate into a stronger they've got all their healths back up, I assume, and they've got their arms grown back if you've lopped one of those off. And they hit harder, they're quicker, and they do longer combos. So you've always got to keep an eye on any given situation. Whenever the room kicks off, it's like you've got to have an eye out on who's doing that, who's up your arse, who's around. And it's...
I'll steal this from Miller.
He
made a quote in his review, and I think it's down to a T. He said, as soon as I started to feel like a badass in this game, the game evolved and changed it, and it made me put me right back on my ass again. And I thought that ring true, to be fair. Every time you get that next upgrade, you're like, fucking brilliant, this is going to be awesome. I've got like extra fucking damage on me tool, I've got a better gun now. And then that happens, then the fucking enemies evolve, and you're like, fuck. They've really done the pacing throughout of the game, like just in terms of its combat and thing, was very well done.
I mean, I like the fact that you have to constantly make inventory decisions. You know, do you carry health, batteries? Do you carry the sellable items you can pick up and sell off at these 3D printers or these kiosks? And it's like, do I forego a health item to keep hold of this, which is worth 500, so I can buy an upgrade later on? And you're kind of having those dilemmas throughout the game. It is very strategic. And what I mean by that is you can't just roar around and expect to do well in the game. You're not going to do that. Like simple things like making sure all your guns are reloaded for the start of an encounter. You learn very quickly that the game has animations that it's like a bit like Monster Hunter. The game will say, like, if you're going to commit to this action, your character's committing to it. So if you need to reload, like, immediately, like I've done it a few times where I had one bullet, I'd fire it and be like, oh, fucking hell. And then you've got to sit there and fucking get all caught out. But once you kind of learn that's the boundaries it's set. I was like, right, after every encounter, reload, check my health, do all this stuff.
Are not forgiving at all. There was parts where I fucked it for myself. I'll be going in, you get this corridor where there'd be a fucking plethora of ammo, and you're like, oh shit, here comes something. And twice I remember going through the game, walking with fucking little health, and I thought, oh, it's all right. I'll find somewhere to heal up before I get into this room. And I'll go through to that room, and it'll be like a fucking boss or an area where multiple enemies come in. I'll get my ass handed to me and go, oh, that's fine. As soon as I get back into the room, I'll have full health again.
No.
You reload back in with that minimal health you had. And I was like, oh, fuck, I fucked myself now.
You really have got to be just, aware that at any given time you can get done over. So make sure you're prepared. And that's... I enjoyed that element of it, because I think that adds to the survival horror element. It's like at any given time I could be taken down here. And where people won't get on with this is because Callisto Protocol imposes its own rules on you and says, look, you play it this way and you be cautious, you be careful, you be strategic, or you're going to have a really, really tough time. And the best example I can find of that is there is an area in the game where you just kind of drop down this little innocuous sort of like hole or whatever. And when you get down there, an enemy spawns in or jumps down with you, it's just one enemy, and your immediate thought is, right, attack it, kill it, shoot it. So you do that. As you do that, the noise generates more enemies to come into this area. Now, these fuckers can't... Some of the enemies can't see you. They can hear you, though. But as soon as you fire your gun or you hit something, they know where you are and they can get up your arse. And honestly, when it all kicks off, there's... I'm not even joking. I think there's about 6 of them in this small area. And you're like, oh, God, how am I even going to do this? And I did it a few times, got absolutely decimated. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute. There's a guy here who can see me. I'm shooting him straight away, and I'm hitting him, and then all these other fuckers are coming out. So this time, as soon as I jumped down, got the grip glove, grabbed him, chucked him on some spikes, and guess what? No more enemies spawned. And I just walked through the little shimmy pit. There's a little bit where you shimmy past. Went through that, and I was done. Also, you can jump straight down there and run to that shimmy point and get through. You've got enough time to do that. I also saw someone who just let off and killed everything. Like, just handled all the enemies online. And I was like, wow. So, I get that this is not an easy game, but you just got to sometimes be sensible about how you approach certain scenarios. I know people don't like that. You want the power fantasy of doing, I'll do it my way, but you're going to make the game harder for yourself. So
I think you're right. I do agree with you totally there that they do impose the rules, and I think it's for the benefit because it is, and
we're clapping Dark Souls and Elden Ring like
exactly.
Ain't a million. I'm not saying it's necessarily got the most fluid of combat compared to that, but it's the same sort of thing. You play any of those games, outside of the boundaries they kind of set, you're going to really struggle. And this is no different. And it's either if you enjoy what they've set up and how they challenge you, or you don't, and sort of banging your head against a brick wall trying to do it, a slapdash way or quickly is not going to get you very far, unfortunately. I actually didn't find this game that hard. I was completely prepared for this brutally punishing, horrible experience, but I didn't find it that hard, really. Like, in comparison to some of the garbage I've played in my time.
No, there was certain... I see this was a criticism of the game, was its like spikes in difficulty, and there was throughout, but there was never nothing. I never had to walk away from anything and go, I'll have to come back to that. That's it. I won't get that stressed out. I'd replay sections sort of 3 or 4 times. There were a couple of boss incidents where I literally had to do it a few times because I fucked that for myself. Like you said earlier, 9 times out of 10. It was a user error. It weren't the game failing me. It weren't thinking, oh, that's fucking ridiculous. I shouldn't be doing that. It was like, no, that was my fault. I've fucked it for myself there. I'm running around trying to heal. I've got fucking bastards running after me and attacking me.
It's interesting because it's not saying it's an easy game, but it wasn't as hard as I thought. But I managed to kind of understand what I was doing wrong and how to tackle most things. Like I felt like the game communicated quite clearly what enemies will and won't do. Like I knew the rules. And sometimes you don't know the rules because you'll go in a room and it'll be like a wave-based set of enemies, so you don't know what enemies are coming, when they're going to come. But once you've gone through the process, if you luckily get through. I mean, I did that plenty of times. You don't die on every encounter, certainly, but if you go back to it again, you're like, okay, I've got an understanding of who's going to pop up here, and you can strategize for it.
Yeah. No, it definitely didn't feel difficult as per se. It's like I say, it's more the setting is a difficulty in itself. Just knowing what you're having to deal with, knowing what's coming. The only thing I would say was a difficult and an annoyance was the need for exploration. What I felt it needed was a bit of the map was quite.
There ain't a
difficult.
map.
Is there no, there weren't no map.
There's no map.
I'm thinking of Jedi Fallen Order because I've just been playing that.
That map is awful.
That's what I felt like it needed. Yeah, that was fucking dreadful. But again, that still had like what I'm thinking in my head is like that Resident Evil 2 clear a room section. Because this game is complete, like very, very linear. I always like to go off the beaten path because I was looking for these fucking collectibles.
Yeah.
And that. But there was a couple of times where I'd go, is that it? There was no direct highlight of which way to go. There's no waypoints in this game. There is no HUD, which to its credit, you know, I'm not saying it needs one, but there is no. But that did deter my fucking exploration, because I'd go through a room thinking it was like, I go, oh, this
Sideway.
way. He's telling me to go that way. I'll go this way. I'd bank round or something. And then I'd go through a door and go, oh, fuck. And then it would take me into a cutscene for the next area. And I'd be like, oh, I've just lost all that bit.
That was annoying. The arbitrarily, fucked it, blocks off paths. So
And to his discredit, no chapter select as of yet, as of this recording. So if you miss one collectible...
Which I did. I've only missed one.
Yeah. Oh, that is a
chapter 3.
You have to replay the whole entire game to get that collectible.
Yep,
that
is
a
annoyance.
stinker. But it's probably something that could... They've already been told us we're getting a new game plus in Feb, was it?
Yeah, February it's coming for
a
free download.
Potentially that could be added, because that is a big criticism, but I thought I'd mention that because, that definitely did hinder the exploration sense of it. I tried to do it as much, but I was every time just like, is this the right way? Is this going to let me go through without like blocking me for coming back?
Yeah, I'm mixed on that, because I enjoyed the fact that I didn't really know. I didn't just tell, because so many games just tell you where you're supposed to go and it will hold your hand and whatnot. And this is quite linear, but it does have optional explorable areas, and it felt like, I've genuinely found this from being a bit, because you don't really want to explore either, because you think there might be more enemies.
No, that is true. Yeah, you think, right, that's the clear way to go. I know that's the end game. Oh, fuck, I've got to go left.
Yeah, I've got to go and have a look down there.
But I thought, to its credit as well, I thought it did do a good way of, a bit like Bloodborne. You sort of go round that odd thing, and you'd swing back round, and you'd end up back in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'd unlock a door what was originally locked.
There's some nice level design this if you go off the beaten path. It's not clear where the beaten path is versus the critical all the time.
I don't know what they could have put in there to market, but
because the thing is, I didn't want to go in the menu. Like it kind of breaks the flow. Like when you've got a map, you're always in there.
Yeah,
you're forever going, is this the right way? Every 5 seconds. I appreciated not having the option, because then I wasn't even tempted, but I can absolutely see where it annoyed people. I made a note here as we start to wind down. It says checkpointing needs to be better. Now I wrote that because I would hit pause and I'd see, and it'd say 12 minutes since your last save, and I was like, oh my God. And I'd be like crapping it, basically.
Walk off the edge of the map.
Yeah, well, luckily it don't let you do shit like that, but that would be a hideous way. So my view was, and I still agree with this, that there's like certain areas that are like safe rooms, because there's like a 3D printer in there. Every time you walk in that room, it's your checkpoint of whatever you've done. It doesn't do that. It will only checkpoint for linear based, or sometimes when you're exploring, once you've got to the end of an exploration sort of, and it's looped background like I've done a little Bloodborne. But I must say, I wrote that in the first like 3 hours, that note. I never once got stitched up by the checkpointing. No, that's not once. I don't know if I got lucky. I can already see scenarios where people have got 12 minutes going and they get killed by an enemy because they didn't dodge right, and that being an absolute sort of end of days for them. But I must admit, I wrote it as a negative, but I never actually was on the wrong end of that. I was just nervous for those times. But I still say they should checkpoint in certain areas so you can kind of control that. You can go, right, I want to go explore, but I just want to checkpoint. And then I'll start from there. But did you get caught out by any of the checkpointing or anything like that?
Only in the sense that, like I say, I fucked it for myself and went into a checkpoint low health, and then it just reverts you back to there.
You can reload an older one. It's got like 10 autosaves.
That's true, it did do that perfectly, to be fair. But no, I did, much like yourself, keep checking, because I remember you said about that 12-minute one. I was like, cool. And I think I got to about 8 or 7 or 8, and I thought, fuck's sake, and then managed to just see that little autosave. And that's pretty much when I was calling my nights. When I saw that, I was like, I get to like a cutscene or maybe a chapter. I was like, right, as soon as I get another autosave, that's it, I'm out. And I get it, and I go, right, that's it, get me out.
Yeah.
But no, throughout, to be fair, that was good, to be fair.
Yeah, the only other thing I didn't get on, or I thought was a little bit cheap, was they kind of used the same jump scare too many times. There's these little things that jump out on your face, and you have to like quick time to get them off, and they just go to that well too many times. That same enemy doing that, and there's other little bits and pieces, but that's a really minor gripe.
It was more the atmosphere.
Because it's not that cheap usually. That's the thing.
That's it. Yeah. No, it wasn't the actual jump scares that were scaring me. it was the anticipation of one coming.
Yes.
And then it wouldn't come. The ones that came, I could see it. It was instantly like right at the beginning. There's like a fucking room, and it's got like this sheet of glass, like a window that's misted all up. And I thought, I know something's gonna fucking come.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, it does. But to be honest, a lot of it, like you say, they do use the same. They have an enemy laying. There'll be loads of dead bodies on the floor. A few of them, there's like frozen bodies.
Yeah.
You go, I know one of these is going to come, and when it does,
or you
again,
fire a
probably-
bullet at one of them, and it doesn't. And nothing comes of it. You're like, I just wasted a bullet. Checking that. I was like, oh.
Yeah. To be honest, like you say, you do get used to it, and it does dumb it down throughout the playthrough. But yeah, I still think the atmosphere is enough to do some damage in the brain. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the only other thing I mentioned, I kind of touched upon it earlier, was that I enjoyed the kind of tactile nature of it all. Like, and but I can also see how this would infuriate people. Like, if you need to switch weapons, it's a little bit clunky to do on the control.
That
It's
is
not.
true,
It's
yeah.
no like. There's no weapon wheel to slow down. It's like, you know, you got to select from a list whilst all this stuff's going on, and then when you actually choose the weapon, old Jacob's got to fucking get it out of his fucking pocket, then bring the new one out.
That's it.
Sometimes he's got to put a new attachment onto a
together.
weapon. I love all that stuff. Like
Fucking 300 years in the future, mate. We should be fucking. we should be
instant.
zipping this out. It should be
lightsabers.
fucking- Exactly.
Well, that's
yeah.
set in the past, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. But although I'm saying this as a negative because it's a pain in the arse, and when you're in the heat of the battle, it's a pain. But I must say, I loved that jeopardy of having to,
Yeah.
you know, make sure that when I changed weapons, make sure when I swung my bat, make sure when I fired, make sure when I did anything, I was certain that I was as clear as I could be. And that's where I bring back to the Monster Hunter kind of references. It's got that slowness and weight to it, which means when you commit to something, you got to be sure, otherwise you're going to get put on your ass. And obviously you go down easy in this game, so it don't take a lot. But
Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because
I can see people hating it. I can see why people.
I can see it get up on people's can. And to be fair, it did a couple of times on mine. But again, I made it worse myself. I didn't prepare on a certain boss. I was like, like you say, you've got a plethora of guns,
Yeah.
but you can only quick switch between two.
Yep.
So I was sitting there fucking faffing, and then I've got to run away, pull it out,
Dodge.
But if
and
I would have got that if I would have got that ready, that's the other thing as well. I'll be like reloading the gun. It'll take a swing. I'll dodge. That gun's not instantly.
No,
reloaded.
you got to finish the animation.
You've
Yeah.
got to finish the animation to get that.
That's why the
done,
shotgun's
so-
useful, because you click one in at a time. So
That's
at
it.
one point when I was really under pressure, I was just clicking one in and shooting, and that's all I had time to do. Put one bullet in, fire. Put one bullet in and fire, and I couldn't get a whole clip in because I wasn't backing up. Yeah, it was just I enjoyed the scrambles that happened. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Callisto Protocol, Mr. Adkins, gaming gallery, the Dimp Digital variety. Is it gonna make its way in? Sitting as we record this on a lowly 70 on OpenCritic. Not a good FGL score, but
No.
7 out of 10, actually, when you think of it logically, still considered good. But I don't think it's considered good in the gaming industry because you got to be 8s or aboves, or people say it's absolute
that's right.
dumpster fire. I don't subscribe to that personally, but that's
No.
kind of how it's been viewed in some circles. But for you, does it get a place in the gallery?
Yeah, definitely, certainly. I mean, maybe we'll have to do a spoiler cast on it because we've not even touched upon characters or stories.
No, not really. I will say that's serviceable, that
that's-
stuff.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The story, just on brief, it is certainly plausible. There's some good mythos. It's not breaking any
No.
things.
It's well
you know,
acted, well produced.
well produced. Yeah, incredible motion capture.
Yeah.
Character models look insane. The actors are all brilliant. Was some few standout characters. Again, I say standout. They're standout good. There ain't going to be no models made of Jacob. I'll tell you that. You ain't getting no fucking amiibos made of him. He's passable though. He does the job.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the lore. I'm excited to see where it goes. But no, maybe we'll go into a spoiler cast one day or something. But yeah, no, this is definitely going into the gaming gallery for me, and I think I've got a score.
Yeah, it's going for me as well. No problems with that. So I guess the real question is now, how are you going to display it? You can display it as a platinum, a gold, a silver, or a bronze.
Yeah.
People are going to come around and look at this and judge you based on what you put where. So
Was it platinum, gold,
don't get it wrong.
bronze?
I've put it where I think you're going to put it already. I like doing this.
Oh dear. I don't know. I think you think I'm gonna go.
I've put it where I'm putting it.
I think I enjoyed it enough to score it how I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna go gold.
Do you know what? I put it in bronze.
Yeah. Oh, I thought
For
you were
you?
gonna go silver.
No, for you, I mean.
Oh, for me.
Yeah, I
Oh,
thought you was leaning that sort of further down
No.
the scale. Wow.
I mean, it just scrapes a gold. That's where I'm putting it. I'm thinking.
Good.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. Like, it is. I don't know. It's difficult. It's weird because the more I think about it and the more I like look into it and discuss it, the more I like it and love it.
Yeah.
I'm starting to love the game. Like, I don't think it is a well beat. It's not one of these games that, like you say, it's not going to tickle everyone's bollards.
No, it's a very specific.
It's
You've got to
specific.
be interested up for this, otherwise you're going to have
Exactly,
a horrible
you
time.
have. But I think it done enough to get me. It's what I enjoy. I really
Yeah.
did like it. I love the story, the setting, the gameplay. That taking me out of my comfort zone, like you said earlier, making me play ways that they intended. I love all that. I think it's brilliant. I do feel there's room for improvement on things they've done.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. I hope they get a second chance to make another
That's
one.
my big one, yeah. I really hope they do get another go at this because
Yeah.
I think they'll do
Bit
something
like
really
Days-
good in the second one.
A bit like A Day's Gone. I loved that game.
Yeah.
And enjoyed it, but again had quarries and feel that a second take would have really fucking sorted that. It probably should be a silver in my eyes, but personally I enjoyed it that much that I'm now wanting to go back through it. There's very rare games because I've got such a backlog.
Yeah.
There's very rare games. As soon as I finish them, I can start them again.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
very considering because it was a decent length. Like I say, this ain't no 30
Ooh, sir.
hour. It ain't no 30-hour campaign.
No.
That it does make me feel I could go through a second playthrough
Yes.
just to experience it again. So I am going to push the boat out.
So,
I enjoyed it that much.
The whole point of the gallery is not to conform to what we think it should be. It's how much we enjoyed it, and that's the kind of philosophy behind it. Just quick, we should mention game length. I had my save clock at 10 hours 50 minutes.
Yep.
On the PS5, it was 13 hours. Now I'm horrendously slow, so don't take
Yeah.
mine to it. But that's I thought that was an okay length personally. I wasn't expecting much more or much less. It's about where I thought. But what about you on that front?
Mine was, I think the last time I checked it was about 9. I'll just put a little thing in context. I've been trying to cheese it for the last. I've been, there's a glitch where you can complete the game on the hardest difficulty.
By doing the last little section of it.
Section, change the difficulty to do it. So I'm trying to cheese it. So that's bumped it up a bit, but I think it was just over the 9-hour mark on my playthrough. My PlayStation 5 counter says 6 hours. So
that's fucking Ben.
That's fuck that. But yeah, I'd say that it's average around sort of 10-hour campaign. I'd reckon there'd be definitely people that can stretch this to a sort of 15-hour campaign if you're really taking your time and exploring and reading the lore and stuff.
Listening to those audio logs and whatnot.
Exactly. Really, if you really suck it in, it's about a 15-hour. There isn't much replayability unless, like you say, you miss stuff and you're having to go back. But certainly, if I've done a 100% run through and got all the collectibles, I wouldn't be going back through this for any reason. But
Yep, gold.
Yeah.
For me, it's silver.
Silver,
I know. I just assumed you was going to go bronze or whatnot, but silver for me. I did enjoy it. It was solid. It's exactly what I've been kind of looking for a while. Like I said, we don't get these games that often, and I sort of embraced, rightly or wrongly, and got on with the mechanics as as awkward and as frustrating as perhaps they can be for people. I always understood what was required of me and almost where I was going wrong, and that's doesn't always happen. There are games out there that are hard, and you just think this is bullshit. But I was able to get through it. I'm not pro gamer at all, nor is Adkins, as I try and lead you to believe that with several quiz titles to his name. But I just thought, this is really enjoyable, super solid, polished, beautifully, like on the PS5, looked great, ran beautifully, and
I think that's what's pushed it just over the edge for me.
Yeah.
Just that setting, the graphics, the environment, the world building. I just enjoyed my time with it. I can definitely see it's not for other people.
No, yep.
People aren't. I certainly ain't going to give it these sort of scores.
Fuck them.
I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, no,
Lovely
absolutely.
little palate cleanser.
Yeah, exactly. So it was the word I use is gripping. I was just sort of gripped to it, but I'm really interested to see what happens with Dead Space remake, which we are a number of weeks away from seeing. I'm also interested to see what the clock is on that, because again, criticisms have come in for Callisto Protocol being too short. You know, Dead Space wasn't a 20-hour bloater. That was sub 15. That was, 10, 12, depending how you played it. So I'll be interested to see if
they went on, I think, or maybe.
Well, I think they just got worse, didn't they?
I know 3 was about 6-7 hours, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, my closing comments on the Callisto Protocol. This is not the Resident Evil 6 disaster.
No.
This is not the Dead Space 3 disaster.
No.
Now, in my mind, it's not Resident Evil 2 remake.
No.
But in this genre, in this kind of area and pocket of games, I thought it was nice and solid. And if you're into or interested in these games historically, I do think a lot of people will get on with it. If you got on with the Evil Within, you'll certainly be able to cope with the mechanics in this. Resident Evil's perhaps a different kettle of fish because it's streamlined, smooth. That is a lighter game in that sense. You just feel lighter and you can, move around quicker and whatnot. This is a bit more of a slower pace, but chuck your headphones on, draw the curtains, turn the lights off, and see where you get to on the Callisto Protocol. But a gold from Adkins and a silver from myself, and that will cap off this session for the Callisto Protocol. Well done, Striking Distance, and well done, old Glenniff. Enjoy your Christmas with old Philip, and I think they're cousins or brothers. What we decided in Glenn and Phil Schofield.
Long lost cousins.
Long lost cousins.
Countries.
Yeah, that's all right. Can happen. So they're going to spend Christmas together. I hope if people are doing Christmas or whatever you're up to, getting a break from work, that you enjoy it. We're tapping out in the mainline episodes for the year, but we're back early next year with more idle game chat. Nothing more for us to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
This was a Dimp Digital production.